So, very warm welcome, everyone, to this second of our two sessions on various bits of meditation advice from Ken. So, let's start. In the very, very best of ways, with a good motivation, turning our hearts in loving care to all of our fellow beings, and in particular, including in our prayers and thoughts and intentions for today, all of those connected to us in this life through karma, our parents, our children, our siblings, those who've been very dear to us, those who've been very nasty to us, those who figured strongly in our karma. They are part of us. But then more widely, there are worlds upon worlds, universes upon universes, as Taisitupa says, that people here, he says, even people with far out imaginations in Hollywood who can imagine all sorts of weird things that you could just never imagine. The many, many worlds there are. And we're on a journey whereby in our future lives, we will be a friend for so many beings, a good friend, a reliable friend. I'm sure many of you saw about the passing of Thich Nhat Hanh yesterday. And he was a wonderful teacher. And I think everyone thought of him as a friend, a man of such peace and kindness. His whole life left a lesson of peace and kindness in the world. And nothing's finer than that. Nothing's finer. Wonderful legacy. So in the future, we will be a friend for all sorts of sentient beings. And of course, our fellow human beings. This is why we are learning and studying and why we'll be meditating as much as we will. So with great joy that we have Dharma in our lives and with love for all sentient beings, even the nastiest, then we do a few prayers to start our session together. Sonje chodon soje chonomla jancho bado dane chapsunche tagi jinso jipe sanomji drola penchera sonje drupara sho semchen tamche dewa dang dewe jodang dempara joche dongal ji jodang tralwara joche Dongal me pen dewa tampadang men tralwara joche. Yerin chadan ne tang tralwe tang yom chempola ne para jore chin. De ata shame shamawati shameta shatru. Am kuri mara jite karota ke yoreta jowati olayani. Vishuddha nimale malapanaye kukure kaka grase grasana mukhi paramukhi ahamukhi shamedavani sava graha bandhanane krita sava bhava pravadina vimukta marapasha savita buddha mudra anugatita sava mare butsarita pare shuddhe Bega Shanto Sava Marakama. Alden Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Dage Chiwara Pende Denshola. Kadrin Chempo Gune Jesonte, Kuson Tuchi Madrup Sado Sol. So together last week and this week, we are exploring what we call meditation. Meditation, and so I mentioned quite a lot of things last week. I don't want to go back and do them all again. The main point was that meditation does not mean something other. We don't meditate, go into some space which is other, although of course, at the beginning, it feels like that, but that's not what meditation in Buddhism is. Meditation, and I presented you the Tibetan word last week, gom, means familiarizing oneself. It means, so that means familiarizing oneself with one's mind, and then finding the habits, because mind is a creature of habit. Our mind is full of habits, and changing the habits, getting rid of the harmful ones, and developing more and more the helpful ones. So this gom means working on ourselves in everything we are. Whatever we are, we think, we feel, we perceive, we're aware, we have a capacity of love, of faith, of anger, of negative, everything that can happen inside us needs working on. There's some room for improvement. Some things are very good. We can make them even better. Some things we haven't even started doing them yet. Wonderful qualities. We need to discover them, bring them in, develop them. Some old habits, very harmful to us. We need to get rid of them. So gom is the whole process. And what we call practice, meditation practice, is exactly that. We do something formally, whereby we learn to work with our mind, to understand it, to recognize the various things that happen with precision, and then to learn methods to transform. It's very helpful. Last week I said it's like putting a car in a garage. We sit on a cushion, we become familiar with ourselves. But the whole point is that in life, we start to be differently aware, to respond differently to what happens, all in a way which takes us where we're going through our wonderful bodhisattva vow to enlightenment for all beings. So meditation is that. Then last week I pointed to a few things, and somewhere near the end, I didn't finish a topic I opened up because I got storytelling about Ken's own meditation journey. And somehow we ended up back in India sometime 1970, 71 with Goenkaji and Vipassana. And I was taking that as an example of what happens in all Buddhist traditions. So what I can't remember if I said it last week or not, but what I'm going to say now, just to finish off that part, is not in any way a criticism of Vipassana Buddhism from me as somebody in Tibetan Buddhism. It happens in all the Buddhist traditions. It's an example I've come across, and I'd rather speak about things I've experienced rather than talk just up in the air. So Vipassana technique, remember last week I said my own teacher, Akon Rinpoche, said, when he knew that I was doing that, and when we talked about it, he said, wow, that could be like putting a Rolls-Royce engine in a paper aeroplane. Because it's a very deep technique. It's Vipassana is something very deep. And so the point I was making is that it's very easy to learn to teach others a method. You do this, you sit down, you set your body in a certain way, your eyes, you breathe like this, and then with your mind, you do this, fine. And then more advice, straight from the books, straight from the teachers, if this happens, if your mind's too busy, well, these are the methods. If this happens, your mind's too sluggish, these are the methods. Easy to teach. So if you teach 100 people, out of those 100, in 1, 2, 3 or 4, or maybe more, meditation, powerful meditation, is going to open up stuff, Pandora's box, stuff from this life, psychological stuff, stuff from past lives, a karmic history that you're picking up. Now you're going back into meditation. So then, how to know what's going on, how to help the person, that very, very, very few teachers really know. And so what happens, and we see this in many Buddhist traditions that have grown quite quickly, and where people are made teachers, then the teacher's stuck. And all they can say, and often they say, is just stick with the method, carry on, keep going, do the same thing. You'll break through it. But maybe not, because I've worked with some of the best, wonderful Rinpoches as their interpreters. So in interviews, when people come with their meditation problems, and sometimes it's like an emergency stop in a car. Sometimes it's, whoa, stop everything, because the person could cause themselves a lot of damage. So we have all sorts of levels of teachers, all the way up to the very best, to Karmapa, Taisituba, and so on. And then other teachers, lamas and rinpoches, and then other meditation teachers. It's very good to have a lineage, so that, for instance, if I have a student and I can't deal with what's happening, I can refer up to somebody else. It's not so easy these days, but it's still possible. Send them to somebody else who can help. So that's simply the point I wanted to make, because this is what I've seen happen in the Vipassana system. And last week, that was part of what we got to, the section about stuff that was in the Celtic script in your support document, having favorable circumstances, a good place, and more than anything, a teacher, a meditation teacher. So that's kind of rounded off that point simply. It's a huge topic, but we won't explore it any further today. Now, I'd like today to carry on going through the support document, saying a few words about the various types of meditation. I'd like to give a few simple tips about practice, and then to spend, excuse me, about half of the session, or something like that, exploring one of Milarepa's songs, because it actually takes us on a journey into the deep meditation of the Kagyu tradition, yogic meditation. So it's kind of like a glimpse, a free sample, a little journey into one aspect of meditation. So I'm coughing because I put on some incense and it's just come to an end. It's in sand. So sometimes when incense comes to an end in sand, then it makes it is kind of not pleasant. I've not caught anything. So now let's go to page 3 of your support document. And these are some things that we find in the main meditation texts. The need for a correct posture. So look, you're in one of these things, a body, your timeless mind, which has journeyed for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Just now you're in this one that you're in, right? It won't last, and then you'll get many more in the future. But just now, this machine is rather amazing. It's what enables you to see all your life. Everything you've seen is thanks to this human body. We don't see like fishes or dogs. We can't even tell if we see like other humans. My sister-in-law had cataract surgery. And when she came back home, she said, gosh, I never realized the place had got so dusty. You know, what we see is according to our eyes. And what we've heard, all the sounds, everything that people said, these ears, and so, we're in this body. Our mind, as long as we're alive, and this is very important in Vajrayana, is inseparable from this body. Inseparable. So this body can help the mind, or this body can damage the mind in all sorts of ways, behavior, diet. And so we use it to help our mind as much as we can by posture, because inside we have what we call a subtle body, energy channels, chakras, centers. And as soon as we do start to still the mind and meditate and become aware of these, then you feel these energies, and we can work on them directly. The inner energy work, when we do it more thoroughly, more scientifically, can even purify a lot of past karma. But for the moment, when we start to meditate as beginners like we are, then posture can be very, very helpful for the mind. How we set our legs, how we set the hands, how we hold the back, what we do with the shoulders, the gaze, the eye power, the energy that comes out through your eyes, and how we can use that energy wisely in many ways. It's a powerful thing. So posture is important. Now, we didn't grow up in a society that sits cross-legged, most of us. And so sometimes it's very difficult, sometimes impossible for people, depending which age you come to Dharma, to sit with good posture. Sometimes in our life, illness afflicts us, and then our body doesn't behave how we want. And so we can't just sit upright on a cushion. So that doesn't matter. The main point, calm, your mind, working with our mind, transforming the mind, understanding it, transforming it. So the body can help. If you have the time and the discipline and the possibility, it could really help. Gampopa said if a monkey could sit like this long enough, it would get enlightened. I don't think anyone found a monkey yet that could sit that long in a Vajra posture. But there's a very famous story of a hermit. He lived in solitude, deep in the forest. And a monkey had been watching him and copying the posture. And of course, this was somebody deep in meditation, so there was a feel. The monkey was an unwilling disciple. He just liked to sit there and do the same and sort of pick up on the feeling. And like we do with high lamas, you know, we like to be in the presence. There's a lot happens. So it's said that monkey at one point traveled off, and then it came across a monastery, a Buddhist monastery, and it started sitting, but it was sitting better than the monks. This is the point. It was sitting there. Posture was so good. And then it had picked up this kind of presence. So the monks learned from other monks, learned from the monkey, which is very funny. So posture can be very, very helpful if you can make the effort. Yoga will help a lot. Yoga exercises to open up the lower part of the body, the pelvis and so on, so you can cross your legs with more comfort, and then get help from people, from mirrors, video camera, your phone, to check your posture. For instance, my posture years ago, I would lean to one side. I can't even remember what side. So when I felt straight, I was in fact like this. And it's only when you've got a mirror or you take pictures or people tell you, correct you, because sometimes we have an inner energy imbalance. So to correct it, we lean. When you have a good meditation teacher, for instance, in our Kagyu tradition, then they will tell you about posture. They will tell you about the inner elements and energies that our arms, legs, eyes, and so on influence, and how you can best help yourself. So not today. That will be a whole Saturday morning just on posture and its benefits. The next thing, it says the need to deal with the worst mind poisons. Now, this is generally true. It's no point doing some sophisticated practices. For instance, if you're a very angry person and you're not tackling your anger. This happens, that people can go, they can become very learned Buddhists and very adept at lots of meditation practices. But if they're avoiding facing their lust, their anger, their jealousy, then those things will come later on and they'll be like a big problem, a big problem. So with the help of your teacher, you need to find your main mind poison, if you have one. So last week, I went through the list of the main antidotes, the main medicines for the mind poisons. They're in last week's talk. I won't go through them again. But there again, your teacher's a help. I know somebody sweet, kind, loving, gentle person who went to Akon Rinpoche and talked about this with him. And he said, your main problem's anger. Now, this person actually came and, normally we don't talk about the personal advice we get from a teacher in a private interview. But well, this person did. She said, he told me my main problem is anger. I don't get it. She said, other things I can understand, but I don't get angry. So anyway, we just thought, oh, well, yep. Because it didn't seem to us that her main problem was anger. But as the years went by, then his wisdom and his foresight became apparent. Sometimes anger is buried very deep and it's hidden behind a shell of gentleness. Nice person, nice guy, nice person. Sometimes there's a deep, deep anger. So we need to find our worst mind poison and deal with it. Because when we see what gets in the way of your advance as a bodhisattva, you're going forward as time goes by, as the years and the lifetimes goes by, then one thing that has spoiled our progress in the past is undealt with jealousy or lust or pride or anger. So we need to deal with them. It says the need to settle the mind. Now this is vital. We'll come back to it in a wee while with Milarepa's song. When everyone comes to meditation, to Dharma, their mind is unsettled. And unsettled means it's all over the place. If we had some, I'm sure it will come, some magic thing where you get a USB plug implant in your head. You can plug yourself into a computer and see your mind on screen. It will be a movie you'd never watch. It goes here, it goes there. It can barely stay 2 or 3 seconds. Something else comes up. It's out of control, literally. If you remember last week, the Buddha's injunction, those 3 things: avoid all harm, practice every virtue, and master your mind. So there is a need to settle the mind. Settle means learn how to keep our mind in one place where we want it. And this is the definition of shamatha. When we see Gampopa's definition of shamatha, calm abiding, some people call it, peaceful stability, then he said it is to maintain. It's very important, not just to have it for a moment, to maintain, it's constant, stable, to maintain the mind, so it's mind work, one pointedly, so with just one focus, comma, in virtue. We could maintain the mind one pointedly in evil. That wouldn't be very good. I wouldn't recommend it, but you will become a very powerful evil person. You could add to that to maintain the mind one pointedly where you want it in virtue. Because sometimes our mind takes us where we don't want it to take us. It makes us very upset, makes us very sad, makes us very afraid. So this ability to settle the mind, how and where we want it, is very important. Then you can see, and I've highlighted it in the support document, the need for short but effective, disciplined sessions. Several minutes only. Several minutes only. So even if you're sitting on your cushion without moving for half an hour or 1 hour, for instance, in many centers, you get a sort of a 1 hour meditation. And so you go along and you're sitting there for 1 hour. But as we're working with our mind, then in that 1 hour, you do 2 minutes or 3 minutes of excellent quality meditation. It needs discipline. And now we can't maintain such discipline for more than 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes. And so we need then to rest. Now, whether it be the Buddha's general teaching to all Buddhists, or if it be in our own Kagyu lineage, Mahamudra teachings, then it says beginners must start with short sessions. And unfortunately, when many people learn to meditate or pitch up at a Dharma center, and apologies to those who've heard me say this all before, because I often say it. You go in and you sit down for an hour and you get into bad habits of dozy meditation, wishy-washy, lovely words, wishy-washy meditation, dozy meditation. Sometimes in Samiling, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning, they have morning meditation. The feeling is so sleepy. It's it's a lovely place to go for a good rest. And what happens is that people try to maintain the method for an hour. No one can do that. So what happens is you go kind of into an interland. You're sort of half there, half not there. For moments, you'll have deep experience, feels like it's deep. For moments, you'll be peaceful. For moments, you'll be wandering. You won't get very far if you do that. It's very relaxing. It's like we had last week, one of the main points, Taisidupa's teaching about aspirin meditation. We are not meditating for a brief fix. We're stressed, we're de-stressed, or we're busy, and then now we're going somewhere where we can just be quiet and simple. We're on a path. We're on a vital path. Life is short. We have so much to do. So much what? So much understanding of our mind. So much transformation of this mind to make it brilliant and to help it find its true nature. So much. Every moment is a priceless gift we have, because one day we'll be like that, gone, dead. And this opportunity will be over. So we're on a path, and we must make the most use of it. So when meditation is a path, then we need to start this way. If the meditation says, for instance, use a pebble as a focus, it tells us how to use the pebble as a focus, whereas we're not the one bit interested in the pebble. We're not there like becoming pebble specialists so that we've memorized its entire shape and looked at it. Whatever focus we have, we'll come back to that, is simply there. This is what the third Karmapa tells us, simply there as an anchor for the mind. Nothing more. We're not interested in it. Whether it's a Buddha image, a pebble, a candle flame, something visualized, doesn't matter. It's just so that the mind, which starts off distracted, can be worked with. So we bring it back to the focus, and we bring it back again and again. So if that's the instruction, then we do that perfectly. You look at the pebble, your mind is with the pebble. As soon as there's the tiniest distraction, your mind starts thinking of something. Pull it away. You bring it back. You don't give it 1 second, 2 seconds. You learn to catch it. And no matter what. So what's the example in the text? It's this. It says, imagine this. You have a bowl of hot oil balanced on your head. And you have a sharp sword point on one of the arteries of your neck. And you have to walk, right? How mindful. So you can't sort of afford to, either the oil's going to spill and it's going to spill all over you, or because you're inattentive, it's very dangerous. I worked many, many years ago, a long time ago, gosh, 50 years ago, with drug addicts who would inject in their neck. And sometimes it made big emergencies. So just imagine that. So that kind of discipline where you know your task, focus, nothing else, even if the whole house collapses. And then what is a distraction? Even if you feel blissful and you start thinking, realizing things, the Buddha's teachings, the Dharma's teaching, everything other than focusing on that pebble is a distraction. Everything. So you just have to be with it. Now, when I teach this in shrine rooms and really insist on that discipline of absolute non-distraction, holding your mind no matter what, it's like if you can keep it with the object for 3 minutes, you get $10 million prize. How well you would focus, solve all your problems for this life, or 100 million, the cost of living's gone up, $100 million. Just if you can keep your mind with the focus for 3 minutes without one distraction, how well you do it. So we do it that well. And I hear people when I ring the gong after 3 minutes, they sound like articulated lorries. I ring the gong and you hear like this, you know, the way when you come to the road lights and the lorry stops and it goes kind of like this. And then I say, take a little rest, and people get 1.5 minutes rest. And then now we come back and we do it again. Now, this is not only the way that we should start meditation. My own experience of interpreting inside long retreats for people who've been meditating 18 hours a day for some years. This is also a way to restore the practice. So now that's our whole topic. Normally when there are meditation courses, we learn to practice that together. But it is something that if you find you've been meditating for years and your meditation doesn't really feel like a path, where the meditation itself has got deeper and deeper, where the qualities of clarity, peacefulness, non-thought, and so on, they're not really there. You're not really master of your mind. You don't have the stability. Then this fact of 2 minutes, 3 minutes, a rest, good rest, 3 minutes, a rest, you might find transforms your meditation life. I've seen that happen for many, many people. So that's a key point. So then the need to settle the mind, we had that. So then once the mind is settled, because we've learned through the short sessions how to settle it, I've seen people, they're gobsmacked. We do this 3 minutes, but total discipline, discipline of body, discipline of focus, awareness. And people start to have good experience that they're not had before. They find a peacefulness in 3 minutes, and before they'd need to sit for half an hour or an hour with the hope of moments of peace coming up. And then they'd say, well, I had a good meditation. I had some moments of peace. So once we have mastered the mind and it is settled and we can just sit down and in a very short time, within seconds or a minute or so, we can be just settled. So after that, there is the need to apply wisdom within the settled mind. You could spend a lot of time, you could waste a lot of time just being peaceful. Of course, you won't be out there causing harm to other people. You'll be one element of danger removed from this planet's life. But Gampopa says, bears hibernate. He's amazing with his examples. He says, you can repeat a lot of Dharma, parrot. You can sit in a state of bears can do that. And then, okay, you can do yogic exercises. You can leap and bound, get into all sorts of things. Yeah, monkeys do that better than you do. He goes through, I think, about 5 different animals. And he says, are we in retreat for this? We're in retreat for wisdom. So once the mind is settled, we need to not be drawn into the blissfulness, the peacefulness, the relief, but to use that settled state as our laboratory for wisdom. Wisdom will change everything. Not knowledge. Wisdom. Knowing ourselves, knowing the mind, discovering the mind, discovering, uncovering all that our mind is until we get down to the core of mind, which is timeless goodness. So there is a need to apply wisdom within the settled mind. Eventually, that takes you to a discovery of the truth of mind. What is this mind that just now thinks, this mind that gets upset, this mind which is full of stories of all sorts, full of habits of all sorts? What is the truth of this mind? I think probably many of you have seen a series of films, The Matrix. That's the question that's going on. behind the actual story of jumping in and out of telephone boxes and things like that. What's going on here? And you realize the whole thing is an analogy for computer programming. So at the very end, you see the two programmers who've been pitting their wits against each other. You know, what the hell is going on? What is this mind? What is the potential of this mind? So we need to discover that kind of wisdom in the settled mind. That's the only place you'll discover it, apart from some very rare exceptions. But then the third step, so have to settle the mind, step one. Within the settled mind, find wisdom, that's step two, and then apply that wisdom within what is called the moving mind. So the moving mind is, or the mind when it's in movement, is different from the peace. And then last week I talked about absorption, when the mind is totally still, nothing happening. So when it's not in that stable stillness and it's moving, it's thinking, it's experiencing emotions, reactions, memories, imagination, fantasies, then we need to be able to maintain, whatever you call it, the center, maintain the wisdom until we can navigate everyday life, other people, situations, in all of their fast changing state. One amazing experience is when the 3-year retreats come to an end, 4-year retreats that we had in Sameling. It's like astronauts coming back down to earth. You have to reintegrate people with life. So sometimes, they're coming out of retreat, they've got to go to the dentist. So if you drive them to the dentist, you have to be aware of just how fast a car seems to be moving when you've been sitting in your retreat cell for 4 years. Even driving slowly, it's like, it seems so amazing. And if you get away from the country roads and you're on a motorway where people are at 60 miles an hour, just centimeters away from each other, it's like you can't look. It's too much. Settled mind, the moving mind, but it's the mind that's important. So we need to apply that. Then we need, it says at the end, to understand remedies. There are some very classical remedies for when the mind is too busy, too agitated, or when the mind is too sluggish, sleepy, dull, thick. Classic remedies for those, and various remedies. So we need to learn the remedies, but we also need to learn when to apply them and not to overdo it, because what happens as we go along meditation through is you can be fixing your mind all the time. It gets too much. Oh, I'm a little bit too excited, must calm down. Oh, I'm a little bit sleepy now, must perk myself up. So we need to know when to remedy and when to stop. So there's some key points. What I haven't mentioned, it's on page 3 in the list of different types of meditation, is about Vajrayana meditation, Tantra. It's a huge topic, and I don't really know what to say because we don't have time to really get into it. I'd say there are 2 things, if you're a beginner, that you need to know about Vajrayana practices, like Chenrezig, like Tara, Medicine Buddha, and so on, Yidam practices. One is that in all of this Gom work of understanding who we are, everything that makes up our being, thoughts, feelings, and so on, then Vajrayana harnesses the power of the imagination. In many levels of Buddhism, for instance, in Theravada Buddhism, imagination is an obstacle. You want to be one-pointed with your object, and imagination is just something you learn to do without. When we explore the power of imagination, it is enormous. Unless you are truly living in the moment, you spend most of your life in your imagination. You're remembering the past. You are thinking about the future, maybe not necessarily planning it, but what hasn't happened yet. Considering things, you're in a world of abstract thoughts. It's mind imagery. If we are not totally at one with our body in mindfulness, in the living moment, then we are in our imagination. Past is gone. Future hasn't happened. Yet we spend so much. So now that's there. We have a whole history that's part of us. My story. I did this, this happened to me. A whole story of this life, maybe of other lives too. And although it hasn't happened, not one atom of it has happened yet, we have a feeling of a future as though it was there, like a landscape in front of us. It's not. Not one bit of it happened yet. So in that landscape of past and future, we have reactivity. We resent, we blame, we hope for things, we fear for things. So Vajrayana takes the imagination in all of its departments and turns that into something virtuous. Our mind, as long as it's imagining, thinking, is in virtue. We see things as pure lands, as Buddhas. All the lovely things of life we offer to the Guru. All the obstacles we take to the path. We see them through different eyes. We relate to them differently. So Vajrayana takes the whole landscape of our stories and gives us a new way of telling the stories that would take us forward very quickly, because it rewrites the story of me. So that's one thing. It uses the imagination. We visualize. We put our own story in contact with what is sacred out there. Then eventually we become that. We become Chinrezig. We become Medicine Buddha. We learn to see the goodness, the purity, the perfection that's in ourselves, our true nature. So that brings us on to the second thing. Using the imagination is one thing. The second thing is we relate to the primal goodness, our Buddha nature, our Buddha awakened nature inside us. Then the methods are by their very nature, or they were, secret, because they are given from teacher to disciple, tailored to the disciple's own case. That's why they are secret in that sense. So Chinrezig practice can be made very complicated, can be made very simple, can be made to incorporate all sorts of wonderful things. So now, because time is rushing by, having said those few general things about meditation, which I hope are helpful or point you in some directions, I want to go to Milarepa's song. Now, with Milarepa's songs, then a song's in a context, and the context is a story. Milarepa spent some years or some time with Mapa, building houses, purifying his karma, and then in the end he was accepted fully as a disciple. Then he spent some 7 years, mainly in retreat, under Marpa's guidance. Now, this was in southern central Tibet, a place called Lodrak. And at one point, Milarepa had a strong longing to go home, where all of his amazing stories started. And Marpa, his teacher, gave him permission to go home. But he said, we will never see each other again. Now, Milarepa's home was a long way off in eastern Tibet. So it was a long journey. Milarepa got there. He found the house in ruins. He found his mother's bones in the house because of the fear of sorcery. Nobody had gone to bury her when she died. There were rats and birds living in all the sacred texts. So anyway, he looked after that situation. And then there was a whole story for some time with his aunt and uncle about his inheritance. And he got ripped off terribly. But in the end, he settled for a few bags of barley and a bit of meat and a bit of butter. And then he went to a place that's called horse's teeth, a rock. And there was a cave. And he knew that although he'd spent all that time with his guru, 7 years of intense transmission of all the teachings Marpa had received in India, he knew he still had the donkey work to do on his mind, calm, working with the habitual thoughts and feelings and ignorance until it was all purified. So he made a promise, I will stay here. I won't go down to the village. I won't beg for food. I'd rather die here. I'm going to stay here until I'm enlightened. So then there's a whole long story, wonderful story about how he runs out of food. He eats the wild plants, the nettles and so on around where he lives. He becomes totally a bag of bones and green colored through eating what he eats. But at the beginning of what turned out to be 12 years of non-stop calm, which ended up with him being enlightened, he made this prayer. So it said this, of all of his songs, has the deepest blessing because he made a commitment to meditate and he fulfilled it. He fulfilled it. So you've got the literal translation in the support document. I was going to explain it, but I think it would take about another hour and a half to explain it line by line. It's a bit of a shame, but there just isn't time. So let's go through the English first. No, I'll give you the transmission in Tibetan first. Je sais mélanger pas d'oger la sol wande so. Je naru buju tapelam chari chazim para jenjelo. Tu jikten je yangwe me yang wara. Konam shage samten balvarasho. Shine jizela me shempara lak tonge meto chum pansho. Chachazam so me damvara tramejilota jivashu rukangdo yene mejewara nyam togi rebu men parashu Durche bachami no paran rasan nishin sho tablam la tetsom me jewara ajebuil zem parasho chen jajimo toi chen tron ritra zen para chen chen Shison pare. So the first couplet says, may this mendicant be sustained in his mountain hermitage by the grace of the liberating path of Naropa's spiritual heirs. So this is about lineage, about the lineage down, in fact, two that Mapa got, the short lineage, the long lineage, the lineage from Saraha down through Maitripa, and then the lineage of the 6 yogas down through Naropa. And Milarepa's practiced all of them, but his main practice was Tumo from the 6 yogas of Naropa. So he says, may I be sustained. May I be sustained. He's going into goodness knows how many years of retreat. He's looking primarily not to his intellect or the methods, but to the grace of the lineage which is passed down. This is something that is priceless. Priceless, because we can think so many states of meditation are enlightenment or where we should be going. But when there is the unbroken samaya with the lineage, the blessing, like these days we have the blessing of the Karmapas. For Milarepa, it was the blessing of Mapa, Naropa, and Tilopa, all the way back to Buddha Vajrayana. He had experienced that for 7 years with his teacher Mapa, who helped him understand his mind. He knew the feel of that was priceless. One moment of that, as Mapa sings about Saraha, one moment of that lineage blessing is worth years, lifetimes of other meditation. So this is his main food. He wants never to lose this connection. You know, we're all connected to internet, and however we're connected, it ends up in these huge fiber optic T1 cables. The lineage blessing is this connection to Buddha mind. And then he says, remaining unmoved by Mara, by the evils of worldly attraction. So Mara is a big topic. Don't like talking about Mara because it's too true. Mara is too strong. But Mara is basically this. As long as you have negativity inside you, then you'll connect with the negativity that's out there in the world. So there are two sorts of Mara until we are very, very enlightened. There's Mara in terms of our own being, 4 Maras. And then there is the power of evil and negativity in this world to get at you as a Buddhist practicer. Many teachers will say, my own teacher said it so many times, the stronger the Dhamma in you, the bigger the obstacles. We must expect those obstacles. So the way to get rid of them, it's classic, it's in all the great Buddhist teachers' teachings. We need to conquer the Maras, the demons, the evil that's inside us. Then there won't be any more evil outside. Easy to say, but that's what we need to do. So we have 4, and gosh, I've got to be so quick with this, so excuse me, but 4 maras, right? The first one's called aggregate mara. It means you're in this human body I mentioned earlier on. Now that's the root for all of the rest. Once you've got a body, then you've got eyes that see things that you really want, and eyes that see things that scare the hell out of you, and so on and so on. You're in contact with that infinite world out there. And you hear things, you hear what people say, you hear all sorts of things. Your body experiences war, all sorts of things, and all sorts of things. Our body, our nerves, our endocrine system, our hormones, they all make us experience. Your inner body, just now you're in the body with the karma of that body that you're in. Me too, I'm in my one. And until we go beyond the power of this body can get us into all sorts of things. Toasted marshmallows, for instance. Oh, I give my back teeth for a toasted marshmallow. You wouldn't really, but even though we get good dentists. But once you are in a body, things happen. Once you're in a body, in a world with karma, things happen. As long as you've got karma, enough to make you be incarnated in a body where some little chapter of your past karma is going to be worked out, then that is going to produce in your mind, which is all of this about, gone, our mind, is going to produce harm. So one mara is called the mara of the aggregates. But then the aggregates are also the 5 aggregates out there in the universe. So once you've got the aggregates, then you've got the mara of kleshas, the harmful mind activities, negative emotions, and so on. And then you've got the mara of death, because we build up all of this reality, this story that's you just now. Then it comes to an end, and you'll start off all over again in a new body with a new batch of karma. And so much of what you learned will be forgotten. So much. We are still victims of life and death, birth and death. This, born into this one, then born into that one, born into that one. As long as we've got that, then it is, it's so powerful, what we will do to stay alive. So anyway, then the 4th mara is called, it's a funny name, Devaputri Mara, Mara of the son of gods. So it's arrogance, it's pride, it is complacency, where we take our blessings for granted. We don't realize how temporary all the good things are in our life. So we're taking them for granted. We're like the gods. So we'll have these good things forever, whatever it is, enough wealth, good health, and so on. It's not true. It leads us into delusion, causes a lot of trouble. Especially Dharma becomes one of the biggest obstacles on the Dharma path, pride, because you're going to acquire qualities that most people don't have. Anyway, those 4 maras inside, as long as we've got them, they are like magnets. They attract harm from the outside. So remaining unmoved by the maras, may the stable mind of meditation and deep absorption ever develop. The mind which is stable, that's in a deep place, nothing to do with the senses, what you're seeing, what you're hearing people say about you, what we're witnessing in the world. We learn to find a state that's unmoved, reliable in the goodness center of our Buddha nature. It doesn't mean we don't do anything about the world. We have bodhisattva activity, but not reacting to the worldly things as an I, but letting the inner Buddha, the inner Tara, the inner medicine Buddha operate in the world through us. So then he says, remaining unattached to the lake of shamatha, peaceful stability. So in meditation, then by holding the mind on its focus, all those things that every 2 or 3 seconds normally distracted us, made our attention span in reality 2 seconds, 3 seconds, we learn to weaken. They die of atrophy. The habits try and get us. They can't. You're there. And your mind is focused just with its object. So then, once that happens, we start to experience peace we never knew before. So still, so beautiful. And as that peace gets into the body, it starts to make bliss. We feel so blissful, so well. Blissful means you feel so well, so much in the right place. Like you can see in a purring cat. You know? It seems like everything's just right. So bliss can take many forms. Peacefulness. It is very powerfully attractive. And the good meditator learns not to be drawn into it. We need that peace as a basis for wisdom, as I explained earlier. So it says, so this is like, shamatha is like a lake, such a calm water. So we're not just going to be one with the water. In that water, beautiful flowers are going to appear, like water lilies, lotuses. Such a clarity of mind that knows yourself, knows what's going on. The Buddha wisdoms. And then it says, the straggly weeds of ideas never intruding. Straggly weeds, you know. I've got some in the garden here. Things like morning glory, ipome. It will strangle everything else given half a chance. Very pretty, it's got nice flowers. But it will just invade and strangle. It's hungry for all the nutrients of the soil and the light of the sun, and it would destroy anything in its way. So not straggly weeds, but the beauty of lovely plant and flowers. Each leaf, so like a Bodhi leaf, so perfect. So as we practice the real qualities, the enlightened qualities, the harmless qualities, the helpful qualities of Dharma should emerge. So it says the straggly weeds of ideas. Now, I've not met anyone who can translate this term into English. In Tibetan, it's trupa. Taisitupa gets very close. He talks about center and losing the center. So when your mind is in the right place, the lineage blessing, the Buddha nature, that's center. There, everything's always been perfect. But what is it that pulls us away from that center? When you're more sensitive to your inner energies, you'll feel all the different channels that with this thought, with this feeling, you pulled away. So we learn to put things into the central channel of Buddha nature, enlightened blessing. So when you lose it, that's called tru in Tibetan. Tru, 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 tru. And then when you're in the right place, the clarity, the blessing, Buddha mind is there. Tru me, no tru. There's no tru going on. And then tru, 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 tru. You're trutting all over the place. Then gradually, a bit more discipline, no trut. So the straggly leaves are the trut, which usually is called, it means mental activity. Mental in that sense means consciousness. The programmed consciousness of our karma comes in, the habits, trut. So we want to be true, where the beautiful leaves of Dharma, flowers of Dharma are present. And then the next couple of verses all home in on one thing, which is doubt, in one way or another. Now, doubt at the beginning is very helpful. We need to question, like the Buddha said, question everything. Said, like somebody's trying to sell you gold, you test it to make sure this is really gold, not gold-plated iron or lead. You test it. But there is a time for that, and there is a time for commitment. So when you know, like Milarepa, all those years with Mapa, knew the goodness of it and knew the power of doubt. The doubt where you've gone so far down the path, and all of a sudden it's the thinking of 10 years before, 20 years before, it comes back. Well, maybe I should have been a musician after all and not gone to Dharma centers. Maybe if I'd have stayed with that guitar, I could have, don't know what. Funny things happen. This is the way the path works. We're not homogeneous beings. We're a funny mixture. Some bits of us go miles ahead, other bits are dragging behind. So we need to bring them all into something which is reliable. So he says, doubts never arising in this meditation cell, may experience and realizations come to their fruition. So experience is nyam in Tibetan, and realization, tok. Nyam, tok, experience, realization, big topic. Experiences are very important. They can be so sublime, it's amazing. But they come and they go. They are produced by causes and conditions. The Buddha taught everything that's produced by causes and conditions, whether those causes and conditions are lifetimes of goodness or just how you set your posture at the beginning of the session. So many produce experience. Experiences, because they're produced by causes and conditions, are impermanent. They come and go. We have to learn not to get attached to them, to recognize that. But thanks to all those experiences, realization grows. That is your inner wisdom. That's not impermanent. That just gets clearer and clearer, clearer and clearer. We're aiming for realization. Talk. And the way we get there will be through experiences generated by the causes and conditions of our relative path. So doubt gets in the way of those. And Mara, the power of negativity, is an amazing survivor. If we made Mara a person, like the devil, she has survived, or he has survived, all of our hundreds and thousands of lifetimes, knows us so well, knows just where to get in through the cracks and spoil everything on our Dharma path. Even the Buddha, on the last night of his 3 cosmic eon journey to enlightenment, even the Buddha had to deal with Mara. And Mara put on the fullest show possible. Everything didn't work. That's why he was Buddha. So doubt. Doubt's defined in the text as 2 minds. You've got your Dharma mind, but then you've got another mentality that attracts you, holds you, can get a grip on you from time to time. So he says, none of that. And then no obstacles created by Mara. Instead, total certainty about the nature of my very own mind. So he's there in retreat. The only thing he's got, no books, or maybe very, very few, no images, nothing. Marpa taught him to use his mind as a temple, to use his mind as a Dharma library, to use his mind as the source for all the loving, enlightened care for other beings. And he's praying that he will never lose certainty about his mind. And then about the methods, we come back to doubt. The methods are relative. They're relative. Sometimes you might wonder when you're doing Vajrayana practice, especially some of the more unusual ones, just a moment, what am I doing? Imagining I've got however many arms you've got and fangs and trampling on corpses or whatever, it is. If you understand it, it's fine. But sometimes, people do. I've met people who've just given up. What the hell is going on? What am I doing here? So the path, the method, and the instructions, not just the visualizations, how to cope with the difficulties of practice. So then he ends coming back to where he started, his own guru, the lineage. And he said, Marpa, who appeared as Marpa, a human, but who's really Buddha Akshobhya. Bless me as I meditate in this mountain retreat. So I believe absolutely that there is very, very, very strong blessing in this prayer. So now I said, I've got a treat for you. And so Katie, who's with us today, and I have been working on this. And I've written, I think I gave it to you in the support document. The literal translation, you just couldn't sing it. So it's a simplified version. But now if the technology works, then I share it with you. So I want video. Here we go.
O freedom path, Milarepa's grace, maintain this hermit in his mountain cave. May worldly distraction, Mara's play, never once steal the mind away. Shamatha's peace is a vast calm lake, to its still waters no attachment make. Instead let bloom in its waters wide the finest flowers of profound insight. May non-thought's petals and shiny leaves never be strangled by thought's ugly weeds. And here alone in the hermit's cave, may doubt not once trouble my days. May meditation reach full fruition through deep experience and realization. May this place of attainment, my retreat from Mara's hindrance, be free, and total conviction may I find in the true nature of my very own mind, ever trusting the path of skillful means. May Son by Father be sustained. You are the essence of compassion, of Akshobhya Buddha, the unmoving one. Sustain this pauper with your loving grace, here in retreat in this mountain cave. La 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 la, 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 la 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 la.
So thank you very, very much, Katie. And let's I think I can see by the smiles on your faces that it worked. You saw it and heard it. Yeah, good. Let's dedicate anything that was good in our session together this morning, and then we have some time for discussion afterwards. Sonam diye tamche zikpani topnenye pedranam pomchine je ganachi palap trukpayi sipe sole drowa drowarisho janchob semcho rinpoche maje panam jejoji jepan yampame padam kongne kondu perwarisho gewa di nyutuda chaja chempo dropjone drowa chikjam madupa Teye sada kamparasho.